In 1491, a king in Central Africa made a decision that challenges everything you think you know about African history. He converted to Christianity, not because he was conquered, not because he was colonized, but by choice. His name was Nzingenkuo, and his decision would create one of the most extraordinary chapters in African history, a Christian kingdom that existed independently, with its own theology, its own art, and its own clergy. But here's where the collision happens. While you've been told that Christianity was a tool of European colonialism in Africa, the Kingdom of Kongo tells a different story, one where an African kingdom embraced Christianity on its own terms, before colonialism even existed. So who were these African Christians? And why did they choose a faith that would later be used to justify their enslavement? In 1483, Portuguese explorer Diogo Chao sailed up the Congo River and encountered the Kingdom of Kongo. He was impressed by what he found, a highly organized state with a sophisticated political structure spanning over 1,600 miles across modern-day Angola, Congo, and Gabon. Chao took several Congo nobles back to Portugal. They spent nearly 4 years there, learning Portuguese and studying Christianity at a monastery in Lisbon. In 1491, the Congo nobles returned with Portuguese priests, masons, carpenters, and soldiers. At the port of Mpinda in the coastal province of Soyo, the provincial ruler became the first Congolese convert. Then came the crucial moment. King Nzingenkuo, impressed by the Portuguese and their faith, agreed to be baptized. On May 3rd, 1491, he took the Christian name João I. But here's something most history books won't tell you. João I's conversion was not a submission to Portuguese control. It was a strategic alliance, a calculated decision by an African king to gain access to European technology, weapons, and knowledge. Within 3 years, the alliance unraveled. Portuguese missionaries destroyed traditional religious objects and rejected the integration of local customs into Christianity. Most of João's sons abandoned the faith, resentful of the Christian insistence on monogamy, a practice that threatened the delicate network of alliances that held Congo society together. When João I died in 1506, his kingdom was divided. A succession crisis erupted between two rival sons, Afonso, the Christian heir, and his half-brother Mpanzu, who renounced Christianity and embraced traditional religion. The battle that followed would become legendary. Afonso's forces were outnumbered, but they had Portuguese firearms and cavalry. According to Afonso's own letters to the Portuguese king, a miracle turned the tide, the appearance of Saint James the Great and 5 heavenly horsemen in the sky. But here's where the collision gets interesting. Mpanzu was not some pagan outsider. He represented the traditional Congo power structure that had built the kingdom over centuries. His defeat was not simply a religious victory. It was the triumph of one faction over another, using Christianity as its banner. Afonso I, now the undisputed king, embraced Christianity with an intensity that would define his 37-year reign. He established the Roman Catholic Church in Congo, creating schools that educated over 1,000 students by 1516. He sent his own son, Enrique, to Europe for religious training. In 1518, Enrique was consecrated as a bishop, the first native African bishop in the Catholic Church. By 1526, Afonso was planning a missionary expedition of over 50 priests to evangelize the interior. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Afonso's Congo developed a Christianity that was profoundly African. Christian words for God and priest were taken directly from the Kikongo language. The traditional religion was not erased, but transformed. This is where the collision becomes truly fascinating. Congo Christianity was a hybrid, a faith that blended African tradition with European theology. Congo artisans began creating Christian art with distinctly African features. The Congo crucifixes are perhaps the most powerful example. While the figure of Christ follows Western conventions, the facial features are distinctly African. In some versions, Christ's face resembles a Congo subject, with stylized features that reflect indigenous artistic traditions. But the cross itself was not foreign to Congo. In indigenous Congo belief, the cross was already revered as a powerful spiritual symbol, a representation of the cosmos and the 4 moments of the sun. The Christian cross integrated seamlessly with existing beliefs. Considered an emblem of spiritual authority, the Christian cross was integrated into Congo ancestral cults and burial rituals, believed to possess protective properties against illness and misfortune. Scholars call this syncretism, the blending of 2 different religious traditions into something new. The Congo did not replace their old religion with Christianity. They absorbed it, transformed it, and made it their own. This is the collision that challenges everything. An African kingdom that embraced Christianity, not as a tool of submission, but as a source of power and identity. A Christianity that was authentically African, created by Africans for Africans. But here's where the twist. The same Portuguese who brought Christianity also brought the slave trade. The Kingdom of Kongo, once an independent Christian realm, became entangled in a system that would destroy it. Afonso I himself protested. In 1526, he wrote to King João III of Portugal, complaining that Portuguese merchants could not be controlled. He threatened to stop the slave trade entirely if Portugal would not enforce its own authority. Afonso was caught in an impossible paradox. He wanted to control the slave trade to protect his people, but the economic pressure from Portuguese merchants and from his own nobles who profited from the trade was overwhelming. He raided neighboring kingdoms to supply slaves for the Portuguese, justifying it as necessary to protect his own people. In one documented instance, he sent 600 slaves to Portugal, mostly prisoners of war. By the time Afonso died in 1543, the slave trade had transformed Congo's economy. Christianity remained, but so did the exploitation that would eventually consume the kingdom. The paradox of Kongo would only deepen. After Afonso's death, succession disputes split the kingdom along Christian and traditional lines. The very faith that had unified the kingdom became a source of division. Portuguese priests insisted on monogamy and primogeniture, European practices that conflicted with Kongo traditions and excluded powerful clans from a succession. The struggle for the supremacy of the Christian cult became entangled with dynastic conflicts. By the 1560s, the kingdom was in crisis. In 1570, Portuguese troops helped the king repel an invasion from the east. By 1665, the Portuguese had defeated the Congo forces at the Battle of Mbuila, killing King Antonio I. From 1665 to 1678, 8 kings ruled in succession and were deposed, a period of chaos that finally led to the abandonment of the capital. In 1678, São Salvador was overrun and abandoned. In 1706, a young girl named Dona Beatriz claimed to be possessed by the spirit of Saint Anthony. She preached a new nationalistic religion that would restore Congo's glory. The king executed her. By 1914, the Kingdom of Kongo was no more. The Portuguese finally abolished the monarchy, merging the kingdom with the nation of Angola. Christianity remained, but it was no longer Congo's Christianity. So what does this all mean? The story of the Kingdom of Kongo challenges the narrative that Christianity was simply a tool of European colonialism. For centuries, scholars debated whether the Kongo conversion was genuine or superficial, whether it was a diplomatic calculation or a true spiritual transformation. But the real answer is more complex. It was both. Kongo Christianity was real. It created schools, developed a clergy, produced sophisticated art, and created a new syncretic faith that was authentically African. But it was also entangled with slavery, exploitation, and the eventual destruction of the kingdom. The question is not whether Christianity was good or bad for Africa. The question is, why don't we know this story? Why do we see African history as a one-way street of European influence, when the reality is far more complicated? The Kingdom of Kongo was not a passive victim of European expansion. It was a kingdom that chose, transformed, and ultimately was consumed by forces it could not control. Its story is one of agency, adaptation, and tragedy. Subscribe to Golden Empire Tales for more stories of Africa's legendary kingdoms.